Bengals fans, Inside the Jungle live coming at you here at CincyJungle.com. Fresh off the second bye week of the 2014 season. Oh, wait. No, that was just an ass whooping. 27-zip. The final score in the city of Indianapolis. The Bengals never arrived. They never left Cincinnati on offense. Thankfully, the defense somewhat showed up and limited the score to just 27. It could have clearly been a lot more. But it's on to Baltimore. We'll look forward to this weekend's game at Paul Brown Stadium as the Ravens make the trip to Cincinnati. We'll look back at what happened in Indianapolis, and we'll also look ahead to what's in store for the Bengals this week. Again, thank you for joining us here at CincyJungle.com. I'm Nick Strubling, hanging out with my tag team partners. It's the Fearsome Foursome back again this week. Scott Mantell, what's up, dude?
Not much, Nick. Just trying to remember what it was like after week 3 when people were complaining why the Bengals weren't number 1 in power rankings.
Yeah, talk about a fall from grace.
Seems like forever ago, doesn't it?
I do briefly recall, Mickey, that this team was number 1 in a couple of different power rankings, but I don't know what happened.
Yeah, they fell off the map. Like, they thought they got to number 1 in the power rankings. They felt like they arrived, and they haven't played since, it seems like.
I think what happened, Anthony, is they started playing teams that were actually somewhat okay.
Yeah, I guess that's part of the problem. And one of the worst games I've seen them play in a very long time. Just all around, no facets were working, and it's back to the drawing board. And I'm going to channel the inner Bill Belichick in me and say, Nick, it's on to Baltimore. We're on to Baltimore.
It's on to Baltimore. We will get to our worst, and I don't know if there is a best from Sunday. We'll take your calls here in just a minute. I'll let you know when we'll open up those phone lines, and of course we'll look ahead to Baltimore this weekend. Baltimore probably the hottest team in the NFL right now, which is a great sign for the Bengals after what's happened the last 3 weeks. All right, Scott, I'll start with you. Try to find a best, but I have a feeling we know what the worst is.
Best, well, Kevin Huber had a good game. Averaged 50-some yards per punt, 11 punts.
My MVP on Sunday on the postgame show. That's a good call.
Yeah, I think he jumped up in the punter rankings from like number 16 to number 3 just in Sunday's game alone. So, Huber's having another good season. So that was one of the only positives I saw come out of that game.
And a worst?
Oh, geez. This is only an hour-long podcast. I'll go. Oh man, Paul Guenther. The defense is. I know they have injuries, but Guenther's been really disappointing. I was pumping him up after week 3, saying that it was a improvement from Zimmer. This defense was better, and I've been shoveling crow ever since.
Mickey, your best and worst. I know you had a fun day on Sunday, so you got to watch this a little later than usual, but there's something good to come from Sunday. No, I'm at a loss for words.
Yeah, the best was that I didn't have to watch it live, and I got to go to Kings Island for my son's birthday party, so I could fast forward through this game. And the worst, this is going to be a jab, and it's got to be certain Bengals fans. I understand displeasure with your team, but it seems like there's a collective of Bengals fans that cannot wait for that other shoe to drop. They don't get vocal and excited until there's something to gripe about, and they can jump on I told you so, or the Bengals always do this. And I really press people, like, when someone says, oh, they're going to lose because they always lose, like, that's not good enough for me. Like, tell me why. Tell me what facet of the game is the reason we're going to lose, because if you have nothing, then I don't even listen to your opinion usually. So, mine's on the Bengals fans that cannot wait for that other shoe to drop. So, the Bengals are still, they only have 2 losses. They're still in the running. Remember, people were calling for Tom Brady to retire before he played the Bengals. This isn't over. We're probably one of the most banged up teams in the NFL, and the season is still young. We beat the Ravens to start the season, and there's no reason we can't handle them again. So I think that people just need to take perspective. So my worst is going to be the outside of the product on the field, which we all know was just ridiculous. It's going to be the people that kind of thrive off those situations.
Yeah, and you put some perspective on it. It's you look at the record. I mean, they're still above 500, and it could be a lot worse. We all know it could be a lot better, but it's not completely. It's not a complete train wreck just yet, AC. But we are 3-2-1.
Yeah, and that's a great point by both Mickey and you, Nick. Yeah, going through when we did the preseason win-loss predictions, I picked the Bengals to lose two of these last games, the New England game and this game. I think what's worrying a lot of people, obviously, is the point differential and just the all-around poor play, and the fact, the one game that they did play decent in, the Panthers game, they didn't play as a complete team. I mean, the defense kind of gave up a lot of yards and points there. So from where I sit, really the only optimism I have is this to me was kind of a tough stretch of the schedule, and I picked the two losses that they do have to happen in this stretch. But if I'm going best and worst, my best and really the only good portion of the day in my eyes was Carlos Dunlap. He had a quarterback sack, a forced fumble, a fumble recovery, 5 tackles. Guy was everywhere, and he's playing at a near Pro Bowl level this year. So that was my best, and really the only best of the day. I guess aside from Kevin Huber, as Scott said. My worst, I've got 2. Andre Smith played absolutely awful. He had a couple of he let up a couple of sacks, I believe. He had another additional hit on Andy Dalton, a couple of penalties, I believe, as well. So he just played poorly, and he was kind of the poster child for an offensive line that played poorly throughout the entire game, really. So he was one of my worst. And then I'm going to kind of echo Scott's sentiments on the worst a little bit as well. I'm going to point out Marvin Lewis. He has not gotten this team ready to play since that bye week. I mean, at least make a competitive showing if you are going to lose these tough games, and they're not doing that. Yes, there's injuries, but there's bonehead plays. There's complete ineptitude on both sides of the football, and it's pretty scary. But this is a divisional game, so let's hope they start getting up for it.
I'm going to give my best and worst now. My best probably would be, man, it's tough, but I will say Kevin Huber. I think he had a good day. There was a punt that they nearly downed on the 1-inch line, had Denard's foot not just grazed the goal line. Other than that, he averaged 50 yards a punt. It also helps when you're punting. I guess it wasn't indoors. They did have the roof open there, but he had a fantastic game, and he showed why he's one of the best punters in the NFL. Sad that we even have to consider that one of the best. That we're talking about our punting. Worst, you guys all mentioned the coaches. You mentioned Marvin Lewis, and you mentioned Paul Guenther, Scott. Hugh Jackson, you need to show up, dude. That was the worst game plan, the worst play calling I have ever. That was worse than some of the Bob Bratkowski games that we watched. And we all know how we all felt about Bob Bratkowski. Run the ball. 12 carries? 12. That is it. 12 carries. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, and no, barely any Jeremy Hill, which I think would have been an effective player to use on Sunday.
I mean, you look at this. I'm looking at the box score, which on Sunday I just kind of looked it over and didn't think much of it. I'm like, yeah, you chalk it up to just a butt whooping. But when you have 8 first downs compared to 27 for the Indianapolis Colts, that is ridiculous. Your first down in the first half came on a penalty. That is ridiculous. Run the football. That's your bread and butter. Why is Andy Dalton dropping back 38 times? That is ridiculous. It shouldn't be happening. I know you were losing and you needed to make up for it, but 12 carries? That is unbelievable. And the reason why they struggled on third down, they couldn't convert a first down, because they were facing 3rd and 12, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 9. You're not going to get first downs that way. You need to run a ball on 1st and 2nd down to make 3rd down manageable. You're offensive coordinator. Come on, dude. Come on, Hugh Jackson. I expected way more from you. And maybe that's my own fault. I'm getting a little fired up here.
Nick, that defense coming into the game was allowing 4.8 yards per carry, and to run it 12 times, and especially not to use Hill in the running game. Where was Jeremy Hill in the running game?
Jeremy Hill on the day, 4 carries for 15 yards, averaged just about 4 yards, 3.8. You almost got Giovanni Bernard killed twice on Sunday with these screenplays. Now, let's give some credit here to Indianapolis. Their defense teed off. Why? Because they knew there was nothing that could get past them in the secondary. There was no deep threat at all. So Indy had 11 guys within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage because they knew nobody could beat them deep. You're shaking your head, Mickey.
Because people can beat him deep. Brandon Tate is having the season of his life with the offense, not returning the kicks. He's a guy that can stretch the field, and we didn't even try. They were putting 9 in the box because every pass play was a screen right on the line. It was one of the most frustrating offensive game plans to watch because everything was out, 2 yards from the line of scrimmage. They never had to leave the box. We ran up the middle. We didn't set up any screen. I don't know the proper term. They dubbed bubble screen for every single screen, but it's not true. We didn't stack receivers. We didn't put people in space. We're not using Jermaine Gresham down the field. The guy's got great hands. I know people have their concerns with him, but let him try to make a play. When you throw him the 2-yard pass and he fights for 6, that's where he's going to be in trouble. Put the tight end in the seam. Nothing the Bengals showed in the first 3 games showed up in that Indy game, and it was a joke. And people blaming Dalton for leaving his receivers out to dry. That's the freaking play call. He's either getting sacked or making that throw. He could throw it away, but why would you? I understand, hindsight's 20/20. You got to make that throw to Gio because look what he does in a game like last year against Miami. You never know. You get the ball in your playmaker's hands and things can happen, but to not change it was just ridiculous. And you got me fired up, Nick. I totally agree. Hugh Jackson just failed, and the fact that people are praising him for owning it doesn't change the fact that he gave that game away. I mean, it's like we didn't even try.
Yeah, and
deep, AC, is that even when Dalton dropped back the pass, he had guys in his face. He had no time. Andre Smith looked like somebody who had 2 left feet, couldn't stay on his feet. The line just didn't do their job. Nobody on offense did their job.
Yeah, you guys are all making great points, and I agree with all of you. Nick, I mean, you brought up a point a couple minutes ago about keeping 3rd down manageable and getting yourself.
Oh, did I lose AC?
Maybe. There was one point, Nick.
AC, are you back there, AC?
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know what you caught there, but Nick, you made a great point about keeping 3rd downs manageable, and you run the ball the first down, at least first down, maybe the first 2 downs, and get yourself in a 3rd and 4, 3rd and 2 instead of these 3rd and 10s, where Andy Dalton has to drop back. This game plan, as Mickey said, was nothing like it was the first couple of weeks, and it didn't look anything the same except for the few little trick plays and screen plays that were so predictable that everybody saw them coming. So this Colt defense was very good on 3rd downs. So it seems to me that the game plan, instead of doing these run plays to the outside that could lose you some yards and these screen passes that could lose you some yards by going laterally instead of right at them, you could use Jeremy Hill, get some yards, get yourself in a manageable 3rd down, and then you're not digging yourself in these holes. The offensive game plan was just mind-boggling. I couldn't believe it.
Absolutely, and I remember at one point late in the game, the Bengals even had 2. I don't know if they were both running backs, but they had 2 guys in the backfield to help block when it was obvious passing situations late in the game. The Colts rushed 4 and still sacked Andy Dalton. So you got your whole line and 2 running backs, and you can't stop a 4-man rush. It was just frustrating.
Jump in there, Scott. I know you want to comment on Hugh.
I'm thoroughly convinced that Hugh Jackson did not scout Indy's defense one bit last week. It looked like Hugh Jackson had been on vacation all week long, just walked out there and didn't have a plan at all from the start. They just looked lost. The offensive line looked lost. Dalton looked lost. The run game looked lost. Everyone, it was just Ooh, they look like they were in the preseason form.
It was the first time this year we finally saw the deer in headlights looks from Andy Dalton. And you know what? And if I'm Andy Dalton, I'm walking and you know at the end of the second quarter, after their what 8 straight 3-and-out, I'm throwing things on the sideline, just trying to get things together and just say what the hell are we doing here? And I didn't see that from anybody.
Nick, and here's my bigger concern after that game is I said this week in my post that this team lacks a leader. There's no way a team with a leader allows that game to happen 2 weeks after New England happened. There's just no way. If that team had a true leader, whether it's a coach, whether it's a player, I know everyone's going to point to Dalton. I'm not singling Dalton out, but if they have a leader on this team, a game like that, in a situation like that, doesn't happen. I'm not saying they win, but they don't come out flat and get their asses kicked around the field like they did on Sunday. It's just that's the more concerning part to me.
I think they have a leader, Scott, but I think we're seeing something pretty scary that he can't stay on the field because he's injured the beginning of every game. Vontaze Burfict is an emotional leader for this team, and he cannot stay on the field, which is it's scary because the frequency of his injuries and how he comes back and within 15 minutes he's out again. You start thinking about a guy's career when situations like that happen. But we had this debate in the offseason of who's a bigger impact to this team, AJ Green or Vontaze Burfict, and I said Burfict then, and I still agree with that. He's the spark, and he'd be making plays out there, that inspired both sides of the ball. And that's probably the most concerning thing of this is that he cannot seem to put a game together.
When you look at this team, and I'm glad you brought up Burfict, Mickey. This team, despite all the offensive woes in the first half, couldn't get a first down. I think they had 2 first downs in the first half, one via penalty, one finally through the air. They were still only down 10-0 at halftime, and that's a credit to the defense. Now there were times where they were rushing 4, and Andrew Luck had all day to eat his lunch, dinner, wash the dishes, take a shower, and then finally throw the ball. That's a little concerning, but with as bad as the offense played, the defense was constantly on the field. You knew they were going to wear down at some point. Your leading tackler on the day, by the way, Vinny Ray, was 16, and about 12 of those tackles were about 10 yards down the field.
Yep.
So that's why this is such an important team game. When the defense can only do so much. And to hold Indy to 10 points and to hold them to 27 for as bad as this offense was, that to me is remarkable in itself. You look at the total yards in this game, the Bengals had 135. That's it. 135 in 4 quarters. This is the same team a week ago that scored 37 points. I guess that's it's the NFL for you. We've seen some crazy things this year already. To go from 37 points in 5 quarters to none in Indy was just I don't know what else to say. I don't even know how else to diagnose it other than run the damn ball.
Yeah, and I've been saying this now for it seems like since the beginning of the year. We're looking at Geno Atkins, and we're waiting for that impact. And he had a couple of pressures on Sunday, but that was about it. And he's got 7 tackles on the year, 7 total tackles, no sacks. And it's limiting him a little bit because of the injury recovery and whatnot. But again, he's the key to what this defense does. Vontaze Burfict, leader, he flies to the ball, no doubt. But up front, getting pressure, it starts with Geno Atkins, and it's not happening. And that is very scary.
It's a good point, Anthony. And the one thing that made this defense so good when Atkins was healthy was that he commanded double teams and sometimes even triple teams, which freed up other guys on defense and made those other players better. And without Atkins being his Pro Bowl self, that just isn't happening. He's not, teams don't have to double him. And those other defensive linemen aren't able to make the impact they could in the past.
We'd love to hear from you, Bengals fans, though. We'll open up the phone lines, 404-946-3397, or if you want, you get in touch with us via our Skype account, Inside the Jungle. Let's welcome in one of those callers. Fatal Content here on the Jungle Line. Fatal, what's up, dude?
Hey, what's going on, Nick? Background King, beat me up. What's going on, gentlemen?
We're here, we're venting, and it's just been a rough couple days.
Oh, you still venting, man? I forgot we had a game, man.
So did the Bengals.
I passed it over, man.
What's on your mind tonight?
I just want to know why we use the second-round pick on a bruising running back if we aren't going to use him. I mean, this is getting borderline ridiculous. I hate to be every week where Jeremy Hill, free Jeremy Hill, but it's to the point where it's like this last game was just baffling, man. We passed when we should have run, we run when we should have passed. It was like it was confusing, and it seems like we're using Gio Bernard in between the tackles and trying to use Hill outside of the tackles. This is that we're not using our personnel to their strengths, man, and it's getting frustrating.
No, we're not. And when you see Hill only get 4 carries on the day, that's concerning. I mean, to be fair, they only had 12 all games, so he had 25% of the carries on Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. And if it's like 21 zip off the jump, I can understand giving up on the running game, but it was 10 zip for an eternity, and it's like it's just I usually don't want to be the one to say this, but it's like the coaching staff is just I don't understand why our entire team, including the coaching staff, I don't know if they lack emotion entirely or I mean it just starts to look like the team resembles the coaches. The coaches are on the sideline just looking like, oh, what do I do? And the players are kind of emulating that same temperament, and it's getting frustrating. It's just, sometimes you want to defend it, but there are just times where it's just indefensible. And we have injuries. I understand that. We have major injuries, but look at Arizona, man. For goodness sake, these guys have started 3 quarterbacks at one time. Carson Palmer has not played all year. The second guy was playing. He got hurt. They're missing Calais Campbell. They're missing their best defensive tackle. They're missing their best linebacker, Washington. And they keep it ticking. Yes, they're not injured on offense, luckily for them, at the receiver spot and running back. That's key for them. But still, they adjust, and they play to their strengths without, the quarterback. So, I mean, to me, it's at the point where we don't have an identity, and it would help to run the ball and force the run if you're missing weapons. It's not – you don't play to the weakness when you're missing weapons. I just don't understand it. The running game is – and that's probably the only position that's healthy, and we're not using it. It's frustrating.
It's very frustrating. And do you think they'll run the ball this weekend against Baltimore? My guess is no. Baltimore's usually pretty stout against the run.
Well, listen, I want to ask you guys if you can find out Hugh Jackson's email address, and we'll all write him some hate mail. Maybe that'll get it done.
So do you think it's going to turn around this weekend against the Ravens?
You know me, man. I'm optimistic, Dave. So I'm always going to say it's going to turn around. We're due. I'm with John from Kentucky. I think a few shows ago, or last post-game show, he said we're due for a good game. So hopefully, I heard Hugh Jackson say that he got on himself for not running the ball, but we've heard that before, and he didn't do anything about it. So hopefully, third time's a charm, and this woke them up. But I was wondering about you guys. My question of the night was, how many carries per game would it take for you guys to be, I guess, content with Jeremy Hill getting?
That's a good question, Fatal. I'll ask the guys. Appreciate the call, man. We'll talk to you on Sunday, all right, bud?
Take it easy, guys.
Hooray! Fatal Content with his question of the night here on the podcast. I'll start with you, AC. What do you think of that?
I'm of the mindset that you got to give Jeremy Hill at least 15, if not 20 carries, and you give Gio Bernard 20 touches, and you split those touches between the passing game and running. I think you run Jeremy Hill more than you run Giovanni Bernard, and they've done the exact opposite. And you use Gio more in the passing game. I think you need to get both the guys on the field at the same time. We've talked about that for weeks too. Those are 2 of your better offensive weapons. And even if one is used as a decoy, it makes things a little harder to defend for the opposition. So I'm going to say I want Jeremy Hill to get 15 to 20 carries and Gio Bernard 20 touches. Probably split that between receptions and carries.
You're probably going to get your wish because Bernard is banged up at the moment. Was banged up against Carolina. We all saw the hit he took on Sunday against the Colts. Mickey, I know you're a big Dane Sanzenbacher fan. I know you're a fan of Mohamed Sanu. But when you got guys like A.J. Green out, Tyler Eifert out, you want to get your best playmakers on the field. And Anthony brings up a great point. Why aren't we seeing Bernard and Hill on the field at the same time?
I don't know why, and that was kind of the hope that we would see that when we stocked our cabinet with that at the in the draft. I don't know that we're going to see it now. I think that probably would have already shown that look if that was something we were working on. Maybe in a bye week you throw in some more formations, but I do think that we're going. I mean, you mentioned earlier you think the Bengals may not run as much against Baltimore, but I think they will. I think controlling the clock in the AFC North is huge, and I think that's one of the things we'll attack. And it's going to be tough, but you stick with the run, and eventually things happen.
Plus, you want to run the ball to keep Joe Flacco and that hot offense off the field, Scott.
Yeah, no doubt. I agree with Anthony, and I've written that a couple of times where I expected the Bengals to have them both on the field, especially with the injuries they have at wide receiver, and we just haven't seen it, which is surprising. I'm of the mindset that, especially when you have injuries, you get your best players out there, and you have them out there all the time. And Jeremy Hill is one of their best playmakers, and to not have him on the field and not giving him the ball just doesn't make sense to me. Given the injuries and whatnot, I don't understand why they're not using him more. I'd like to see him run more and use Bernard in the passing game a little more. I'd say kind of the same 20 touches in total for Bernard and 10 to 15 for Hill would be where I'd like to see him at.
There was a play on Sunday that the Indianapolis Colts ran on offense that I was really kind of I don't know what the right term is. I saw it and I was like, man, I really wish this is something the Bengals would do. Ahmad Bradshaw lined up in the backfield next to Andrew Luck in I believe it was a 3, it might have been even a 4 wide receiver set, 2 split out to each side. And Bradshaw motioned out of the backfield and lined up in the slot. And a linebacker had to cover Bradshaw. It was either on a 2nd and long or a 3rd and long. They ended up throwing the ball to Bradshaw. He was wide open. Go figure. And I'd like to see them do that with Bernard a little bit. Have him in the backfield, line him up as a receiver, and make him go out there and run routes. You don't think Bernard is faster than some of these linebackers in the league and can make plays? We've seen him with great hands. I'm tired of him catching balls out of the backfield. Make him, catch the ball down the field a little bit. That's just my take. We'd love to hear your thoughts, though. Bengals fans, get in touch with us. 404-946-3397 is the number to call. Let's go to the jungle line. Area code 859. Hi, who's this?
Hi, everybody.
I had you muted. I'm sorry, John. What's on your mind tonight?
Well, I listened on the radio weekend. I was working. I didn't really see the game, but I knew we were not doing well, and we were losing badly. So, midway through the second half, I just shut it off. But I didn't really realize, Nick, just how awful this team was in the first half until I went to, Cincy Jungle and started reading some articles. We had the ball, 11 times and didn't get a first down? Is that right?
I believe that's the answer, yes.
And our punter, he had more yards than anybody else. Nick, I remember in the mid-'70s when an expansion team came into the league. In those days, there wasn't any free agency. So an expansion team had nothing but old players that nobody else wanted. And nobody expected them to do anything. So like the 76 Buccaneers, they didn't win a single game. So you would hear about games like where their punter would have more yards than anybody else. And I just wondered, is this an expansion team we've got out here? I mean, is anybody on our offense under the age of 40? And why hasn't anybody been fired? I don't get it, but, well, that's the Bengals for you again. So, man, I didn't know it was this bad. This is atrocious. How on earth did we go from being considered maybe the best team in football to something like this? Mind-boggling.
I know it was one game, but I don't want to overreact and fire anybody, and I know, Mickey, you want to respond as well.
Hey, John, if the season ended today, the Bengals would be in the playoffs. So you're ready to fire clean house, call this an expansion team when we're still officially a playoff team. That kind of gut reaction. I'm a fan of yours, John, but I'm glad you're not the GM here because the Bengals they beat the Ravens, who are the hottest team in the NFL right now. If the season ended, they'd be in the playoffs. We didn't have a starting linebacker on the field. Our best receiving weapons are hurt, and the season's still young. There's no time to overreact. Your expansion roster would make sense if we were 0-5. I don't know that you necessarily want to say that to a 2-loss team. I know Anthony wants to add something too.
Yeah, to put John's thoughts into perspective, John, Kevin Huber had more yards in punt yardage than the Bengals did the week prior playing Carolina through 5 quarters of football on offense. So that tells me that the offensive game plan this week was completely inept. It wasn't planned well at all. It's absolutely ridiculous. The other thing that people aren't failing to really mention that I think really turned the tide in this game was that Leon Hall pick 6, that opportunity that he had. The Colts, I think, were up 7-0 at the point late in the first quarter. He had an opportunity to intercept the ball and take it all the way to the house. Would have been a tie game, completely different ball game at that point. Who knows if the offensive struggles would have continued or not. But at a minimum, the team would have had some momentum, and that was a big play in the game too.
Yeah, well, I did call the postgame show on Sunday, and I did say I do think we'll rebound against the Ravens. But that's before I had read some of the articles and looked at the stats, and my God, I didn't realize they were that bad. But nevertheless, yeah, Malaluga, Lamore, and Burfict all out, not a starting linebacker. That is pretty big. But, I mean, that's defensively. And we're talking about offense here. You can't get a first down. I mean, the coach, the 85 Bears here, the coaching. I won't even go to the coaching. I'll start drinking again. I don't want to do that. So, anyway, I'll tell you what. I hope we rebound. And I do hope we come out smoking against Baltimore, pull off a major upset, and look alive again. One player in particular, though, Domata Peko, for the life of me, don't tell me he's a starting tackle again in Cincinnati next year. My grandma could push him out of the way. I don't know what's going on. I can't figure it out. But, oh, well, I hope we rebound, and I think we can beat Baltimore on Sunday. And, hey, strange things happen in the NFL. Who knows? We might beat them by 30 points. We'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens, John. Hey, appreciate the call, bud, all right?
Okay, take care. Who
Hey, it's John from Kentucky here on the Jungle Line. Stranger things have happened. I wouldn't say it's a major upset if the Bengals win on Sunday against the Ravens, considering we've already beaten them once this year. But when you consider where these two teams are at this point in the season, yeah, I guess you could call that an upset in today's NFL. I forgot about the Leon Hall play. There was a lot to forget about on Sunday. Forgot about the Leon Hall play, and to be fair, T.Y. Hilton made him look pretty bad on Sunday as well. Get in touch though, Bengals fans. 404-946-3397 is the number to call. Let's look ahead now to the game against the Ravens this Sunday. Bengals are certainly banged up. Scott, what do you make of this matchup, considering where these two teams are at after week one, where not a lot of scoring happened, and here we are at the end of October, and teams are just in two totally different places.
Yeah, you couldn't really pick two teams going in completely opposite directions right about now. Common sense tells me that this is not a good game for the Bengals, but the way the NFL works, I would not be shocked one bit to see the Bengals come out and lay the wood to the Ravens. I don't know what makes me say that. I haven't seen anything from the Bengals that makes me think that, but they play good at home. The last time they were at home, they put up 37 against a respectable defense. So, I'm just not really sure what to think about this game right about now.
I want to get the thoughts of Mickey and Anthony in just a minute, but before we do that, let's go back to the Jungle Line. Area code 269. Hi, who's this?
Hey, what's up, fellas? This is Doc Ox. How are you guys doing tonight?
Hey, Doc. What's up, man?
Hey, great show as always.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking our call.
Mm-hmm. What's on your mind, man?
So, well, I was going to bring up Hugh Jackson, but you guys already covered that one. I was going to call in last week and bring up the whole Vontaze Burfict ankle gate, I guess you could call it. I didn't get a chance to call in, but I what I was going to call in about was regarding, his attitude. Could it be that something good could come out of, what he did on the field with the twist in the ankle? Maybe something good can come out of it, like the tenacity of a linebacker that Baltimore has or Pittsburgh has, like a Ray Lewis or a Greg Lloyd from years past. But I'm more concerned by what I saw out of what he did this week, lowering his head and getting hurt again. And what it seems like he's doing is just, if not hurting his health, he's hurting the team, the fans. He's got to stay on the field. And I'm just wondering if you guys think, is he ever going to get it? Is he ever going to stay on the field?
That's a good question. I know the Bengals and Paul Guenther kind of mentioned it this week. He's stressing that he needs to learn how to tackle better. And to be fair, the tackle and play that he made on Andrew Luck, it didn't look all that bad at first look. I didn't think his head was down, but maybe it was a little bit. But you're right. He's got to get that figured out so he can stay on the field, because right now there's nobody. I mean, I love Vinny Ray, but he's no perfect.
Yeah, exactly. He's got to get this sorted out. He's going to end up with a short career, and we're going to be searching again for, another linebacker. And he's obviously become the heart and soul of our defense. We can tell when he's not on the field what can happen. So you just got to hope that he figures it out soon before it's too late for both himself and for the team.
I hope they get it right, and hopefully, I'm not sure what his status is for Sunday just yet, but you got to think long term. They're more concerned about that as well. I know you want to add something to that, Scott.
Yeah, I heard an interview with Paul Guenther today talking about Burfict, and to listen to him talk about him, he just sounds exhausted when talking about trying to fix his tackling technique. And I talked about this week. Vontaze Burfict knows how to take guys down and knows how to hit guys, but he does not know how to tackle. And if you watch that hit on Luck, for some reason, he turned his head back to the left very awkwardly to put his head right in the middle of Luck's sternum. He's deliberately using his helmet as a weapon and trying to hit guys with his head, and that's what broke David Pollock's neck. And if he can't stay on the field, this defense is not a very good defense.
He is the heart and soul, and you hope that he can get it corrected. At this point, you just want to get guys on the ground with the way this defense is playing, Doc. But yeah, let's hope that he can get it figured out, especially considering the fact that the Bengals have signed him to a long-term deal, and we want to see him around. We haven't seen a linebacker play like this in Cincinnati in quite some while, probably since Takeo Spikes and Brian Simmons were in the linebacking core.
Yeah, exactly. And I think he was the first one to make the Pro Bowl in how many years, since the 70s, as a Bengals linebacker. So, we finally got it figured out, and in typical Bengals fashion, we take one step forward and two steps back, it seems.
Yeah, but I think there's still time to get it corrected, and the biggest thing is they just want to make sure he's healthy, so that you worry about life after football with these kinds of injuries.
Exactly. Well, it's the media that's causing all the the delays with the concussions. So.
Yeah, that went over well, didn't it?
Yes. Well, I'll get up here. I know you guys got many more people trying to call in. Again, you guys do a great job, and we all appreciate it.
Thanks, Doc. Appreciate the call. Who day, bud?
Who day?
That's Doc Ox giving us a ring from Tampa, Florida. I'm glad he brought that up. Marvin Lewis's comments regarding concussions did not play well in the media last week and throughout the NFLPA. Did not shed a good light on the Bengals. AC, you're shaking your head.
Right. Yeah. That was. I think he got. It was Eric Winston, the NFLPA president or something. He went to Twitter and just started ranting about it. One quick little side note that's playing off of Doc Ox's comment about Vontaze Burfict being injured. The Bengals have been a little bit snake bit off recent contract extensions to big players and them getting injured. Geno Atkins, Vontaze Burfict now, Leon Hall back a couple years ago, and that they're suffering some pretty bad injuries. It sounds like Burfict's injury is more of a neck issue that's connected to the concussion issue. So I don't know if that's going to continue to linger, but he's got to fix it because he's in for a series or two and then he's out of a game, and that doesn't help anybody.
Well, that bodes well for one Andy Dalton. And on that note, let's go back to the jungle line. Area code 314. Hi, who's this?
Hey, what's going on? It's Antoine.
Antoine, what's up, dude?
What's going on, y'all? Hey, I just wanted to call in. Want to piggyback off of what Scott said. I've been saying that ever since the first game, or second game of the season, whenever Montez first got hurt with the concussion, that he's always leading with his head, and every time he's tackled, it seems like he's leading with his head. So that's gonna bring bad things if he keeps doing that, especially with all these neck and head issues. So he's got to find another way to bring down defenders. But also, I wanted to. You guys were talking about the wanting to run the ball a little bit more this past week, but the Colts, I mean, they pretty much are bringing everybody up to the line. I'm pretty sure that's what Hugh Jackson had seen also. I mean, Colts players brought everybody up to the line, playing one-on-one, man-on-man, knowing that they didn't have no A.J. Green and felt they can hold the receivers down, and that they did. The receivers couldn't get open. And I mean, even when we tried to run the ball, you see what happened. But it seemed like, I don't know if the Colts, did watch very good game film on us, or the defense is really good. It's almost Spygate good, but it seems like they're running a lot better than the receivers out there, and getting to the spot on the screen passes faster than Gio could. So it's like they knew every play, so it wasn't much we can really do out there. And it wasn't Andy Dalton's fault. Pass rush was coming straight in there.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Antoine. I mean, it was like the Colts knew everything the Bengals wanted to do, every tendency. What are they going to do on this third down and long? Typically, I joke about it on Twitter all the time during the game, like, oh, here comes the screen pass, and sure enough, that's what happens. I don't recall ever seeing an open receiver down the field. It always seemed like somebody was contesting a pass, or there was just no, and unless you count Jermaine Gresham with a little, dump route 5 yards, 10 yards down the field. Gresham had 10 catches for 48 yards. So it wasn't like he was stretching the defense either.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it was. I watched the tape again. I was watching, and I was just seeing the Colts, just running those routes better than the receivers out there. And I don't know what's going on. Maybe they had that Thursday night game, so maybe they had extra time to prepare, and they're ready for everything. And I don't know what it was, but I mean, we're still good. We didn't turn tables around with a win against Baltimore this week. Luckily, we got 3 home games. We're pretty good at home, so. Despite all that happened the past 3 weeks, how bad we looked, we turned everything around. I don't know if you guys seen the information on A.J. Green. He's saying he's not going to be 100% all year, so that could be a big factor in what we do down the stretch also.
Yep, we need to get him healthy. The offense certainly misses him. They certainly miss Tyler Eifert as well. Those are 2 big losses on O. Appreciate the call, Antoine.
All right, thank you.
Uday. Okay. That's Antoine on the jungle line, giving us a ring from Missouri. I'm glad he brought up a point about the schedule, too. They've got Baltimore, Jacksonville, and Cleveland at home the next 3 weeks, and they go on the road to New Orleans and Houston and Tampa Bay. So this 6-game stretch, I'm going to include Baltimore in this because I think it is a winnable game considering they've already beaten them this year. But this 6-game stretch, guys, doesn't look as daunting as it did before the season. And you want to throw in, then they got Pittsburgh and Cleveland again. So you can throw that. That's an 8-game stretch where they could easily go 6-2, 7-1. I mean, it'd be nice if they can go 8-0. That's not going to happen. But it's not like this is murderer's row here.
No,
Bueller?
It's not.
There we go.
Sorry, I know Mickey's got some. No, it's not. It's not. It's not. Kind of this little stretch I thought was pretty difficult. This stretch of games I just felt was very difficult. These are 3 playoff teams from last year, and they're all playing pretty well. New England started playing well when they played the Bengals, but this next stretch is going to be important. And I know you guys joked about a mini bye, have the Bengals had a bye last week, and they played like it against the Colts, but they do have a mini one with that Thursday night game against Cleveland coming up, and that long week after that. So they do get a little bit of a mini bye there, and I think Mickey's got something.
No, I mean, I was just gonna add this game. You lumped Baltimore in, Nick, is huge. You take this one, a team you already beat. You got them at home now, where you play a little better, and you're on top of the division again, and you're into a stretch of winnable games like you talked about. I understand people's reaction, but the doom and gloom is a little much. So, I agree with what both you and Anthony said.
Yeah, the last time the Bengals started out 3-0, guys, was 2006, and they ended up 8-8. I mean, look, they just like AC said, this stretch of 4 games, New England, Carolina, Indy, and Baltimore, we knew it was going to be tough. And so right now, they're 0-2-1 in that stretch, which it's better than 0-3, I guess. I want to get to a little more in depth about this Baltimore game. Before we do that, let's go back to the Jungle Line, area code 573. Hi, who's this?
This is John Rolston, one of the Rolston boys out in Hannibal, Missouri.
Hey, John, what's up, man?
Hey, hated that game last Sunday. I'm a little worried about it coming up to the next game. But part of the game that bothers me more than anything, it looks like the preparation doesn't seem to be there. And I throw that back at the coach's fault. It seems like they just were not ready to play. It seemed like the same thing when they played New England. They just didn't look ready to play. They were just the eyes and the headlights things for both of those games were there. And I still think that's the fault of the coaches not getting those guys up and ready to play. What are your thoughts on that?
That's a good point, John. And I'm glad that I think Antoine may have brought this up as well. That the Colts had an extra 4 days to prepare as well, since they played on Thursday night the week before. So add that in, plus the Bengals playing 5 quarters against the Panthers. That's no excuse at all, John. But yeah, you're right. It just seemed like they didn't get this team prepared to play in New England, and again this weekend, against Indy. Fortunately, an AFC North opponent, so that somebody that they're familiar with this week will help. But yeah, that was disappointing, not seeing them prepared from the get-go.
Yeah, and I do think that this last game against Indianapolis was really the defense played a halfway decent game. I mean, it was 10-0 at half, and I was hoping they would come out with a little bit of fire after halftime, but they just, again, 3 and out right away. I mean, they just like they weren't even there. I just couldn't believe they couldn't do anything in that game. And again, it's just like, I know I personally don't consider Marvin Lewis very good at making adjustments at half, but just to come out and be as flat as can be, after they were still close in that game. I mean, a couple of things could have turned around, they could have been in it, but holy cow, just to not play, I don't know. It's like they didn't want to be there or something. Just really, really bothered me. I hope they don't do that against Baltimore, because this team always seems to have a very scary kind of psyche where one little thing turns them off and then they can't seem to recover from that. I sure like to see them come back and recover. They can beat Baltimore. I mean, they always play well at home. I sure hope that they get themselves ready for this game and come out and knock Baltimore off and get back in the division lead.
Amen to that, John. I hope you're right. Hey, appreciate the call, bud.
All right, take care.
Rude. That is one of the Rolston boys, John, on the Jungle Line, giving us a ring. Baltimore, they're coming in. Joe Flacco is playing probably some of his best football since we've seen since that stretch of playoff games when they won the Super Bowl a couple years ago. They're just on fire. Steve Smith playing great, the ageless vet there for the Ravens. We're catching the Ravens at a time where the Ray Rice ordeal has kind of simmered down a little bit. None of that distractions happening right now, and they're on a roll. So, Scott, what do the Bengals have to do to win on Sunday against Baltimore? What is this something that they need to get to Flacco early and often? Do they need to just outscore the Ravens and hope that they can win that way?
I think they just need to go back to kind of the basics. It sounds stupid, but the offensive line has to block. They have to give Dalton some time. They got to create some holes for the run game. The defense needs to just stay in their gaps and stop making boneheaded plays. They need to tackle. We're not asking a whole bunch. It's just a matter of tackle the guy when you have a chance to tackle him. block the guy when you have the chance to block him. That's what the Bengals are really struggling with right now, are just the absolute basics.
Mickey, your thoughts? What do they need to do to win on Sunday?
Well, it's interesting, Nick. We're still early. It's still a young season for the most part, so teams haven't really changed that much without major injuries. And Baltimore's one of those teams that's not facing major injuries, so they're largely the same team that we faced in the opener. And so, you read things about what the Bengals need to do, and they need to take, advantage of their chances. They need to score when you get in the opponent's side of the field and all that stuff. But if you think back to the game we played last time, who was the hero of that game?
Mike Nugent.
Right. The Bengals couldn't score. I think we had one touchdown, and it was a 77-yard pass or something to A.J. Green that he juggled. It's funny.
It's the only touchdown catch of the year, right? Am I mistaken?
I don't know that off the top of my head, but you know what I mean? Like, if we would have come out and said, oh, the Bengals are going to win this game, they're going to have to settle for 5 field goals and play decent defense, everyone would have thought we were crazy. So I really think that Scott kind of nailed it. Go back to what you do. Stretch the defense a little. I would say that some of Baltimore's weaknesses is their secondary. You still got to try to run the ball, and you got to be opportunistic on defense. So, I think that the Bengals match up with Baltimore well. It's a familiar opponent, and I don't think there's any, if the Bengals do this, then there's no chance they'll win kind of conversation here, because no one would have thought relying on Nugent in week 1 would have given you a win in Baltimore.
I was mistaken. A.J. Green has 2 touchdown catches this year. And I like the comment you made there too, Mickey, about, if this happens, then this. The Bengals over the weekend were +2 in turnover differential, and they still lost, AC, which is something we almost never see under Marvin Lewis in the NFL for that matter. So from a Bengals perspective, what are your thoughts? What is it that the Bengals need to do in order to win on Sunday?
Yeah, and that statistic speaks to the lack of running the football. And kudos to Scott. He pointed out that Andy Dalton has half as many receiving touchdowns as A.J. Green on the year. So throw that out there for public consumption, I guess. But I do a 5 keys post every week, and I don't want to give away too much. I got two quick ones. Last week, really, the last 2 weeks really signified little things not going the Bengals' way. Easy makeable kick, Mike Nugent misses it. Leon Hall drop pick 6, completely changes both games. And usually good teams get those fortunate plays, fortunate bounces, and things go their way. And that hasn't been happening in this 3-game stretch. So that's one little thing. And really the other thing is play pissed off. I mean, for lack of better words, play like New England played a couple of weeks ago. Everyone believed in you 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. Nobody believes in you now. They think you're pretenders. And now the Bengals have gone a month without winning a football game. So they need to play very, very angry and play hard for a home crowd.
Let's go to the jungle line. Area code 513. Hi, who's this?
Norwood, what's going on?
Hey, Norwood. What's up, man?
Nothing. Hey, I'm trying to catch back up on the season because I missed the first 3 games of the year. I was out of the country. So I come back for the bye, and I actually made the pilgrimage up to Foxborough because I thought I was going to see the last days of Brady. Ended up getting cabbage thrown on me on the train ride back into Boston. So it was humorous. But one of the things I've noticed catching back up and trying to look at some of these things, and I'm not sure if it's been talked about, but just like we just brought up, our away games, just like last year, are our linchpin, and they're terrible. They're really not great. The Baltimore game in Baltimore was defined by field goals and a lucky catch. We come home and we're scoring 24, we're scoring 33. Even against the Panthers, even though it was a tie, we scored 37. So we put up big numbers at home. We go to Foxborough, we can't do anything. We go to Indy, we can't do anything. So, I mean, I'm not really sure. I'm trying to figure things out. But it would seem that inside these noisy stadiums, there's just something. There's some line in the Bengals offense now through 2 offensive coordinators that they just aren't getting it done. What do you guys think?
for whatever reason, the trend is a little disturbing that they haven't played well on the road this season. And I don't know if you chalk it up to routine, you chalk it up to the noise. That's a great question. Do any of you guys have any thoughts on that? Mickey, how about you?
It's interesting. I haven't really thought of that, right? And I'd have to go back and look at the numbers. But, I mean, the Bengals last year defined themselves by the way they played at home until the playoffs. So, there's some truth to it there. But I don't know. Who have they played on the road? Baltimore. They play New England. I mean, those are pretty solid teams. So, I don't know. I mean, it's definitely interesting to think about.
Like 10 different categories of offense.
Right, and like I said, I haven't really thought about it, but I mean, that's definitely an interesting point.
Yeah, they've got road games this year at New Orleans, Houston, and Tampa. Who, to be fair, Tampa has beaten the Steelers this year. Who are 4-3 now. Then they go to Cleveland and Pittsburgh. So I mean, yeah, they got to get that road form figured out because the last half of their season they're going to spend a lot of time away from Paul Brown Stadium.
Yeah. I was talking on. I think I mentioned in the chat room. I got onto the NFL Network today on Sirius and just asked the general question. I'm like, what am I not seeing about silent snap counts and when you're playing in a noisy stadium? And they were talking about the signals coming back from either the center or the guard, and some of the adaptations that are done, and how that can be used against them. And maybe it's just an old standing, Bengals technique that the offensive line uses that just isn't getting done in a new day and age. And I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I wish I knew the answer to that, Norwood.
All right. Just thought I'd weigh in on that. I'm taking kind of a fatal optimism here on this. And I guess the litmus test will be this week.
Yeah, we'll see. The Bengals they've looked great at home, so let's hope that trend continues here against the Ravens. Appreciate the call. We're glad you're back in the country, and sorry that you had cabbage thrown at you there in Boston.
Right on. Who day?
Who day? I had I was thinking about this too. The last time the Bengals were shut out was back in 2009. Mickey, I think you were there in New York. What? The regular season finale. Against the Jets.
Yeah. Very, very similar situation, except for there we were. We did have our starters in the first half, but there was nothing on that game, and we were just, saving our more embarrassment for the playoffs the next week. But yeah, I was there. It was very similar. I felt just as crappy afterwards. So yeah, I remember that game well.
That was a very bad time in Bengals history. That 2-week stretch. I think we all know how that ended. So we've kind of looked a little bit about this game against Baltimore this Sunday. I think, look, if you want to get back to basics and do some things, you got to run the ball. I want to see them actually try running the football, like giving it an actual go. 12 carries is not giving it an actual go. I want to see them get 25 to 30 carries this weekend against Baltimore. A lot of that's going to dictate what happens. I think that if they're going to stack the box, if AJ Green's not playing and they know nobody's going to beat them down the field, that might change some things. But you've got to do something to get the running game going and get some pressure off of Andy Dalton. Don't make him throw it 38 times. That's never a signal of success for the Bengals. It's time now for one of my favorite parts of the show. We do this each and every week.
Hey, ladies, quit your babbling, because now's the time in the show when all the boys pull out their cojones and make bold predictions.
For a while there, last week I predicted that the Bengals would hold this Colts offense to 17 points or less, and I was looking pretty good considering the Bengals couldn't move the ball on offense, but unfortunately the second half caught up to them defensively. So we'll start with you, Anthony Cosenza, giving you all the pressure in the world here. Give us something bold for Sunday against the Ravens.
I'm going to say that the Bengals defense basically shuts down Steve Smith and shuts him up, because shutting Steve Smith up is quite a task. So I'm going to say he has less than 50 yards, 0 touchdowns, and is responsible for a turnover, be it a fumble or maybe a drop pass that becomes an interception. So the Bengals shut down the top receiving threat for the Ravens this week.
I like it. I hope they do. Mickey, how about you? Give us something bold.
I think the Bengals win this game by more than a field goal, and they have less than 100 yards rushing as a team.
So you think the Bengals won't rush for 100 yards?
No, but I think they still win.
All right. I like it. Bold. I don't like the less than 100 yards, but I like that you're going bold there. Scott, how about you?
We're going to go exact opposite against Mickey. I'm going to say not only would they have a 100-yard rusher, they will have 2 100-yard rushers and put up 30 points on the Ravens.
That is extremely bold. Did you see the running game this weekend, Scott?
No, I didn't. Neither did Hugh Jackson.
And to be fair, you take away that 89-yard run by Giovanni Bernard against the Panthers, and they really didn't rush for many yards that game either. So yeah, back to the drawing board. Hopefully they can get the running game figured out. As far as a bold prediction from me, I think they will limit Flacco to less than 200 yards passing, and he will have 2 or more turnovers, either it be interception or fumble for Joe Flacco. That's my bold prediction. I'd like to see that. That'd be fantastic, because if they get that, they have a pretty good chance to winning that game. I'd love to hear your bold predictions. Make sure you send them to me on Twitter at Nick Suberling, and I'll be sure to retweet those out. Give me a score prediction for Sunday against the Ravens. I'll start with you, Scott Mantell.
30 to 17, Bengals.
All right. He's saying win. Mickey, I know you're going to go with the win.
Yeah, I'm going 24-20 Bengals. I think that the Ravens are going to be around the line of scrimmage. That's what the Bengals have put on tape lately. And I think that we're going to be able to pick apart their secondary. So that's where the less than 100 yards comes in. I think the Bengals are going to struggle to run the ball, but it's going to open up other parts.
I'm going to go now to the Debbie Downer of this panel, who predicted before the season that the Bengals would lose this game. So, AC, lay it on us.
Yeah, I've been the Jermaine Gresham-like villain the last couple of weeks. I've picked him to lose a couple of times. So I did pick him to lose this game, but you know what? We got to give the Bengals some good juju this week. We got to give them some good vibes. So I'm going to say it's a very close one. I'll say 20-16 Bengals. The Ravens are driving at the end of the game to go ahead, and they go out on downs. So 20-16 Bengals at home, and they get off the schneid.
All right, I dig it. I like it. Looking over some of these other bold predictions here in the chat room. Fatal Content says Hill gets 140 yards rushing. F it. All right. He also says Denard gets 2 picks. That's pretty bold. Oh, he's added another here. Geno gets 3 sacks. That, if you look at the current form of Geno Atkins, that is a bold prediction. Mike Woodstock in the chat room says Green and Sanu split 4 touchdowns. Gio and Hill with 1 each. Nugent has 0 field goal attempts. Bengals lose 49-42. All right. Norwood in the chat room. Geno Atkins comes alive, 2 sacks and a forced fumble. Doc Ox, Denard with his first interception. Those are some of the good ones we've got. Michael Creedon also says Wright bomb, touchdown catch, close to 100 yards. I'd like to see Wright get a little more involved. I think he's going to be he's slowly coming along. I think that the more he gets some more reps, him and Dalton getting some good rapport. So we've done our bold predictions, we've done our score predictions. Now all that's left to do.
Shout outs.
It's time for shout outs. AC, I'll start with you. Give us your shout outs for this week.
I'm going to go with Alex Dolezal, who favorited a tweet a couple days ago on the Bengals veterans post I put up, being confident. I also want to shout out Norwood, Don't Call Me Gutter Snake Jones, who's been who called in and said some good things and doing some work in the chat room. And I gotta shout out my boy Mark Sanchez, and I know it's a Bengals podcast, but I did coach him in high school, and I was able to reconnect with him this weekend. Got a cool picture with my family, and nice guy. Obviously, he remembered my brother and I from coaching him, and was very cool to the rest of my family. So those are my shout-outs.
How's the Sanchez doing?
He's good. I think I know he wants to start, but I think he's a lot happier in that atmosphere than all the negativity he got in New York. But solid guy, just nice as can be. All these little kids were coming up to him and asking him for his autograph and stuff, and he was obliging all of them. So just can't say enough nice things about him. I know he's got kind of a reputation among some people, but good guy.
Very cool. I did see the picture. It was awesome of him to do that. Very cool stuff. Mickey, how about you? Give us a shout-out this week.
I'm going to break format a little bit, Nick, and mine's more of a call to arms. So if you're in the Cincinnati area, tomorrow there's a fundraiser at the Milford BW3s. If you go, you're looking for some wings or something, grab a beer, go in there, tell them you're there for the Kelly Woodstock thing. Some portion of sales goes, to my good friend Mike and Kelly, who are dealing with their own stuff right now. But I'd appreciate it if you do that. I'll definitely be there. Probably, it sounds like twice tomorrow. So that's my shout out, Nick.
So if you're in the Cincinnati area on Thursday, head out to the Milford BW3s and let them know that you're there for the Kelly and Mike Woodstock fundraiser. Very cool. I wish I was going to be in the area. I would meet up with you there.
Cool. Yeah, I hope some people do.
Scott Bantel, your shout outs for this week.
I'll give a shout out to a couple commenters I've had on some of my recent posts. A guy by the name of Shroomy and a guy by the name of Michael Furman, both commenters on CJ. So thanks for that.
I'm going to give a shout out this week to Chili Dog on Cincy Jungle. He's the one and only guy who normally posts comments on my podcast posts. So Chili, thank you for leaving some great feedback. Normally it's some kind of Dalton haiku, some kind of weird Chili Dog language. I don't know what it is, but I appreciate you leaving comments on my podcast post. I'm also going to give a shout out this week to our newest patrons here on our Patreon campaign, Bill Nichols and Sam Carson. Thank you for your contributions to our Patreon campaign. Thank you very much for that. If you want to help out and you like what we do here on Inside the Jungle, check us out over at spnt.tv/Patreon. The support you've given us has been tremendous over the last few months. I really thank you for that. So again, if you want to help us out and you like what we do here on the show, spnt.tv/Patreon. Final thoughts as we wrap up episode 168. Scott Bantel.
I think the Bengals get back to being a respectable-looking football team this week, and pull the division close. This is a huge game because if they lose this, Baltimore goes to 6-2, and the Bengals sit at 3-3-1. That's a big gap to overcome. So I think they get it done at home.
Thanks for joining us this week, and hopefully we'll catch back up with you next week. Scott, Mickey, final thoughts as we wrap up episode 160. I know it's been tough for you recording the show tonight because you've got one eye on the screen and one eye on the Royals-Giants World Series game. Down 1-0 in the series, but it sounds like you're leading in game 2.
Yes, they're up right now, 2-1. Final thoughts, man. A couple weeks ago, Green Bay was going through similar, the sky is falling type thing, and Aaron Rodgers told the fans, relax. I think that, we need to relax. These Bengals have shown that they're a great team. They were on the top of the power rankings at one point, facing some injuries. They're going to get healthy. They're going to come back, and I think it starts this week.
Thanks again for joining us. Appreciate all you do here for Inside the Jungle, Mickey. And enjoy the game on Sunday. I think you should go and be a good luck charm.
I'll think about it.
Final thoughts, AC, as we wrap up tonight.
I thought all of us had some solid shout-outs. Mickey, that's a cool shout-out you had, and Nick shouting out Chili Dog. That's just epic, buddy. I love it.
I mean, I don't know. I don't understand half the things he's writing.
Nobody does.
I appreciate him leaving feedback.
I keep asking him to call in, so I hope he does one time. But good talking with you guys. And some people on the website have been saying that they don't think that this is that huge of a game. It's still early, and they've got a lot of ground to make up later. That is true, but I think that this, from an attitude standpoint and a lot of different other standpoints, I think that this game means a lot toward the Bengals season and the division race. So I think this is a huge game, and if they are going to make a statement, this would be a great game to do it.
Thank you again, as always, AC, for rushing home
Oh, thanks, buddy.
To be on the show. I appreciate all that you do for the show. Mickey's holding up an Ickey Woods signed Sports Illustrated cover.
Yeah, we had someone in the chat room ask about it. It's Super Bowl bound cover when they were going, and I had I ran into Ickey Woods and he signed it through Mickey, so it was pretty cool.
I'm a little biased, but it's by far the best Geico commercial yet.
It's awesome.
Just a little biased. Again, thanks to everybody who tuned in live here at CincyJungle.com. Don't forget to join me following Sunday's game right here at CincyJungle.com for Inside the Jungle post game. We go at it for about an hour, taking your calls. It's been awesome to be honest. The post game shows this year have been fantastic. Just nonstop calls. The phone continues to ring off the hook, and unfortunately I can't get to everybody. I wish I had some way of getting people on hold and being able to answer the calls that way. But the support and everybody tuning in has been fantastic. So make sure you join us right here after the game on Sunday at CincyJungle.com. We're the only live call-in show immediately following Bengals football, so make sure you tune in for that. Also, just a big thank you, and I mentioned this last week, and I forgot to do it this week. The iTunes reviews you all have been leaving us has been awesome. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Michael Creedon in the chat room left an outstanding iTunes review. So if you have a chance and you listen to the show via iTunes, and even if you don't, head on over to iTunes in the iTunes store and leave a review for the podcast. We're at 98 star reviews right now. We're so close to 100. I can't thank everybody enough for the support there, as well as our Patreon account. You've all been fantastic. This show is just a blast to do, and it's we love doing it for you fans. So thank you again for everybody downloading. Thank you for tuning in. Episode 168 of Inside the Jungle is officially in the can. Thanks for downloading. Also, big thanks to our associate producers, Andy Lanham, Larry Rolton, Mike Vardy, and Chris Settich. Inside the Jungle is an SPNT production. For more information about our other podcasts, log on to SPNT.tv and check out all the latest news about the Bengals at CincyJungle.com. We'll see y'all Sunday, hopefully after a Bengals win. Hooray!
Hooray!
Hey.